Jadi pada saat go live akan ada ini aja sih Bapak dan Ibu. Gitu. Itu aja.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
So Gaurav, do I start broadcasting now?
Yes,
Please.
So we all we stop our audio and also our video. Thank you.
So just confirming, you're seeing the full screen, right?
Yes, Gaurav.
Okay, so thanks. We are all going on mute now.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for coming here today to webinar Digital Construction in Indonesia's Infrastructure Project held by PT MRT Jakarta and Bentley. My name is Nadia Laras and I will lead the webinar as moderator. Before we jump into the next agenda, let me give a brief explanation about this webinar. As you may know, digital construction is a form of the 4.0 industrial revolution and has been implemented in various countries around the world. Along with the existence of digital construction development activities have become more effective, innovative, and creative. Digital construction implements the integrated internet-based and big data construction. One application of digital construction is BIM, or Building Information Modeling. MRT Jakarta implements an integrated building information modeling or BIM system with the Common Data Environment or CDE in the Phase 2 construction project with the aim to provide the same working platform and information source for MRT Jakarta consultants and contractors to enhance collaboration between these parties. Digital construction in Indonesia has been implemented through the provisions of PUPR BIM team in line with the decree of the head of Balitbang number 32 of 2017 and provisions of the regulation of the Minister of PUPR number 2020 of 2018, which stated that the use of BIM must be applied to the non-conventional state buildings with the criteria of 2,000 square meters area and more than 2 floors. This webinar aims to provide information and understanding about the implementation of digital technology in the infrastructure sector in terms of regulations, technology, and best practices, including those applied in the MRT Jakarta Phase 2 project, and also to show the contribution of digital construction technology to the new work arrangements as mitigation of the impact of the pandemic. Before we start the webinar, I would also like to give you a brief explanation about Bentley as our partner for this webinar. Bentley System is the leading infrastructure engineering software company. Bentley provides innovative software to advance the world's infrastructure, sustaining both the global economy and environment. The software also used by professionals and organizations of every size for the design, construction, and operations of roads and bridges, rail and transit, water and wastewater, public works and utilities, buildings and campuses, and industrial facilities. Before we continue, I would like to invite all the participants to take part in our survey in order to get an ebook from Bentley and e-certificate for your participation on this webinar from PT MRT Jakarta. And for anyone who wants to ask, please ask your questions drop your questions through Q&A box at the bottom of your screen, and please don't forget to mention speaker name in your questions. All questions will be answered in the end of this webinar. All right, moving right along, today we are delighted to have Mr. William P. Sabandar as the President Director of PT MRT Jakarta Perseroda, who will give an opening remark for today's webinar. And for the keynote speech, due to work reason, Minister of Public Works and Public Housing of Republic Indonesia, Mr. Basuki Hadimulyono, couldn't join us in person, but on behalf of His Excellency, Mr. Insinyur Trisasongko Widianto, as Acting Director General of Construction Development, will deliver the speech. Also, before we begin, allow me to introduce the speakers for today's topic. First on the list, we have Ms. Sylvia Halim as Construction Director of PT MRT Jakarta Perseroda. Good morning, Ms. Sylvia. Thanks for joining us. And then we have Mr. B.H. Yap as C-Beam Lead and C-Railway System Lead ICOM Singapore. Welcome, Mr. Yap. Next, we have Mr. Paul King as Industry Director, Construction Operation Bentley. Good morning, Mr. Paul. Thanks for joining us. And then we have Ms. Debbie Smith as Service Director, Bentley. Good morning, Ms. Debbie. Next, we have Ms. Nur Zalida Ahmad as Head Corporate Relations, Multimur Resources Malaysia, along with Mr. you to those George as Head Digital Information Technology, Multimur Resources, Malaysia. Good morning, and thank you for joining us. Moving right along, I will now invite Mr. William P. Sabandar to give the opening remark for this webinar. Mr. William, the time is yours.
Thank you, Nadia. Good morning, everybody. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Selamat pagi, salam sejahtera untuk kita semua. Let me use Indonesians as many participants here are Indonesian, so I will deliver my opening in Gado-Gado forms, combining Indonesian and some format of English. Yang terhormat Bapak Tri Sasongko Widianto, Direktur Jenderal Bina Konstruksi Kementerian PUPR, yang dalam hal ini mewakili Bapak Menteri PUPR. Kami berterima kasih atas kesediaan dan kehadiran untuk menyampaikan keynote speech pada hari ini. All speakers, thank you very much for your participations on these occasions this morning. This webinar, as mentioned by Nadia, is jointly organized by MRT Jakarta and Bentley, and thank you very much for all the support. Kepada semua peserta webinar, I got the report that the numbers of participants is actually reaching 1,000 participants, which is very good. And hopefully we can benefit from the webinar this morning. The topics of this morning webinar is digital construction in Indonesia's infrastructure project. Teman-teman, ini adalah tentunya topik yang baru, di mana memang kami berkoordinasi dengan Kementerian PUPR untuk melaksanakan berbagai inisiatif infrastructures dalam konteks digital infrastructure. Sebuah keniscayaan pada saat kita memasuki era revolusi industri 4.0, maka konstruksi atau dunia jasa konstruksi tidak bisa tidak harus mengadopsi pendekatan yang berbasis digital. Jadi memang tren otomasi di berbagai industri dan pertukaran data, termasuk cyber systems, mempersyaratkan dunia konstruksi untuk bergerak dari pendekatan yang tadinya boleh dikatakan konvensional menjadi sebuah pendekatan yang basisnya adalah digital. Dan mau tidak mau, MRT Jakarta sebagai bahagian dari satu modern construction industry di Indonesia juga harus mengadop sistem ini. Nah, apa yang dimaksud dengan konstruksi digital atau digital construction? Kalau kita refer kepada pemahaman yang dibangun oleh McKinsey mengatakan ada beberapa komponen dari konstruksi digital. Yang pertama ini dalam kaitan dengan teknologi survei dan geospatial high definition, termasuk penggunaan 3D laser scanning and drone. Jadi sekarang kita sudah menggunakan teknologi yang sangat maju dalam survei, dan ini juga kita lakukan di MRT Jakarta, baik itu di atas tanah maupun di bawah tanah. Yang kedua, yang kita biasa lihat dalam konstruksi digital itu adalah dalam kaitan dengan teknologi pemodelan konstruksi melalui building information modeling, dan ini diintegrasikan dengan berbagai aspek scheduling, cost, building sustainability, energy efficiency, serta data asset and facility management. Komponen kedua inilah yang nanti akan didalami pada webinar hari ini. Yang ketiga, misalnya soal kolaborasi dan mobilitas digital, yaitu pemanfaatan teknologi digital untuk integrasi proses bisnis dan alur kerja serta koordinasi dalam satu platform atau aplikasi. Yang berikutnya, Internet of Things. Kita sering mendengar ini, atau aplikasi internet dalam berbagai bidang kehidupan. Dan yang terakhir, inovasi terkait material dan metode konstruksi. Nah, pagi ini MRT Jakarta mengadakan satu webinar yang fokus pada Building Information Modeling. Kenapa? PT MRT Jakarta pada saat ini sedang mengerjakan atau mulai mengerjakan MRT Jakarta fase yang kedua. Fase kedua ini sebagai informasi kepada Anda semua ini dimulai dari Bundaran HI sampai dengan Ancol Barat, dan kita membagi dua segmen. Yang segmen pertama itu dari Bundaran HI ke kota yang saat ini sedang dikerjakan, dan segmen kedua yang saat ini dalam fase preparation, fase persiapan itu dari Kota Tua menuju ke Ancol Barat. Total panjangnya 12 km, dan seluruh jaringan, seluruh konstruksi itu akan dibangun dengan konstruksi underground, terowongan bawah tanah. Nah, ini membutuhkan kecanggihan teknologi yang tentu harus jauh lebih sophisticated daripada ketika kita membangun fase 1. Dan ini adalah momentum yang tepat untuk kita juga menggunakan pendekatan construction digital atau digital construction. Nah, apa yang kita lakukan sebenarnya ada dua sistem besar. Yang pertama adalah Common Data Environment. Kalau di fase 1 kemarin, ya, sistem pengelolaan data kita itu masih segmented, ya, masih bisa dilakukan secara parsial. Di fase 2 ini kita mulai melakukannya dengan pendekatan Common Data Environment, di mana ada satu sistem data yang merupakan platform di mana seluruh proses di-collect, ya, dikelola, didokumentasikan di dalam sistem tersebut. Ya, nah sistem ini didukung dengan pengaplikasian Building Information Modeling, dan Building Information Modeling nanti yang mungkin akan dijelaskan nanti lebih detail oleh teman-teman, termasuk di sini Bu Sylvia Halim, Direktur Konstruksi MRT Jakarta, akan menjelaskan bagaimana sih aplikasi Building Information Modeling ini di MRT Jakarta. Jadi kombinasi antara Common Data Environment dan Building Information Modeling ini akan memungkinkan kita untuk mengelola sebuah proyek secara lebih efektif, lebih efisien, ya, dan tentu lebih berkelanjutan. Apa yang saya katakan lebih berkelanjutan, ya, ada dua aspek penting di sini. Yang pertama, dengan mengelola secara CDE dan BIM itu tentu kita akan lebih bisa memastikan kolaborasi antar pemangku kepentingan. Semua orang tinggal lihat ke dalam satu sistem data, kemudian dapat mengenerate tentu sistem pengambilan keputusan, ya. Dan ini tentunya didukung dengan tadi Building Information Modeling yang sudah menampilkan sebuah desain dalam konteks 3 dimensi, bahkan 4 dimensi kalau itu dikaitkan dengan scheduling. Dan inilah yang memudahkan kami di MRT Jakarta sekarang untuk mulai melakukan perencanaan operasi, perencanaan bisnis, bahkan perencanaan pembangunan transit-oriented development sedini mungkin. Dan ini yang berbeda. Ketika fase 1 kita baru bisa melihat bentuk ketika bentuknya selesai dibangun, di fase 2 ini kita sudah bisa mulai melihat bentuk ketika proses ini direncanakan, dan ini membuat dimungkinkan karena kita menggunakan pendekatan digital construction. Saya kira saya sampai di sini saja. Sekali lagi kami mengucapkan terima kasih. Thank you very much for all participants, for all the speakers, kepada Bapak Tri Sasongko atas dukungan yang sudah diberikan, ya. Mudah-mudahan kegiatan ini nantinya dapat memberikan dampak positif bukan hanya kepada PT MRT Jakarta, tetapi juga kepada seluruh stakeholders dan pemangku kepentingan lainnya. Terima kasih, selamat berwebinar. Back to you, Nadia.
Thank you very much, Mr. William, for the excellent speech. Before we go any further, let me give a little summary of Mr. William's Indonesian speech or gado-gado speech, ya, Pak William. Mr. William said that the construction industry has now shifted from conventional learning to digital, and for this reason, PT MRT Jakarta also uses the latest technology in the construction of the second phase of the MRT in collaboration with Bentley, of course. Okay, before we continue, I would like to say that the number of participants who have joined now has reached 500 people. Yay! Welcome back, everyone, and thank you for joining. So the following agenda is speech from Mr. Insinyur Trisasongko Widianto as Acting Director General of Construction Development. Mr. Trisasongko, the screen is yours.
Oke, terima kasih, Nadia. Pertama-tama saya ingin menyampaikan permintaan maaf dari Bapak Menteri Pekerjaan Umum dan Perumahan Rakyat, Bapak Basuki Hadi Mulyono, yang sedianya beliau akan hadir, tapi pada pagi hari ini beliau mendadak dipanggil oleh Pak Presiden ke Istana Bogor, sehingga beliau menugaskan kami untuk membawakan, menyampaikan keynote speech dari beliau. Izinkan kami membawakannya. Yang terhormat Bapak William Sabandar, Direktur Utama PT MRT Jakarta. Yang terhormat Ibu Sylvia Halim, Direktur Konstruksi PT MRT Jakarta. The Honorable Senior Vice President ICOM Singapore, Mr. Seng Tiok Po. Honorable Technical Director of Digital Engineering, Rail and Transportation, ICOM Singapore, Mr. Yep Yu Heng. The Honorable Industry Director Construction Operation Bentley, Mr. Paul King. Yang terhormat Safety Director Bentley, Bapak Profesor Dr. Erwan Agus Purwanto. Para praktisi profesional penyedia jasa konstruksi, para peserta webinar. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Shalom, Om Swastiastu, Namo Buddhaya, salam kebajikan, selamat pagi dan salam sejahtera bagi kita semua. Pertama-tama marilah kita selalu panjatkan puji syukur kehadirat Allah Subhanahu wa taala, Tuhan Yang Maha Esa, karena atas perkenannya kita dapat hadir pada acara yang sangat baik pada pagi hari ini dalam webinar dengan tema Digital Construction Indonesia Infrastructure Project. Bapak Ibu hadirin yang kami hormati, sesuai dengan visi Presiden Republik Indonesia tahun 2020-2024 yang antara lain mempercepat dan melanjutkan pembangunan infrastruktur yang ada di Indonesia. Kita perlu memerlukan berbagai upaya dan inovasi dalam melakukan percepatan pembangunan tersebut. Salah satu upaya yang dapat dilakukan dalam mendukung terlaksananya visi Presiden Republik Indonesia tersebut adalah melaksanakan transformasi digital dalam pelaksanaan kegiatan pembangunan Indonesia. Transformasi digital merupakan salah satu dari keempat sasaran utama pembangunan di Republik Indonesia. Hal ini tentu saja dapat mendukung terwujudnya percepatan pelaksanaan pembangunan yang ada di negara kita, Indonesia. Di era pandemi COVID-19 saat ini sekaligus dapat digunakan sebagai momentum percepatan pelaksanaan transformasi digital tersebut. Sehingga segala kegiatan yang sebelumnya dilakukan secara luring atau offline mulai beralih menjadi dilaksanakan secara daring. Salah satunya adalah webinar yang kita laksanakan pada pagi hari ini. Sehingga kondisi yang ada tidak lagi menjadi hambatan dalam pelaksanaan kegiatan kita di masa yang akan datang. Bapak dan Ibu hadirin yang kami hormati dan berbahagia, saat ini Kementerian PUPR telah berupaya untuk melakukan inovasi-inovasi dalam pelaksanaan pembangunan infrastruktur di Indonesia. Penerapan teknologi informasi dalam pelaksanaan pekerjaan konstruksi di Indonesia merupakan salah satu langkah mengimplementasikan adanya sistem informasi jasa konstruksi yang tercantum dalam peraturan pemerintahan nomor 22 tentang peraturan pelaksanaan Undang-Undang nomor 2 tahun 2017 tentang jasa konstruksi. Dalam pelaksanaan kegiatan administratif di lingkungan Kementerian PUPR, kita juga telah melaksanakan sistem e-government, karena kami menerapkan beberapa sistem informasi yang mendukung pelaksanaan pekerjaan Kementerian PUPR tersebut. Beberapa aplikasi tersebut antara lain pelaksanaan pengadaan barang dan jasa secara elektronik melalui e-procurement, sistem pemantauan evaluasi pelaksanaan pekerjaan pembangunan melalui e-monitoring, serta beberapa sistem informasi penunjang kegiatan lainnya. Saat ini Kementerian PUPR juga telah menerapkan teknologi informasi dalam pelaksanaan kegiatan pembangunan di lapangan. Beberapa proyek infrastruktur yang dilaksanakan oleh Kementerian PUPR saat ini telah mengaplikasikan penggunaan BIM atau Building Information Modeling seperti tadi yang disampaikan oleh Pak William, di MRT juga sudah melaksanakan. Beberapa proyek infrastruktur di lingkungan Kementerian PUPR yang telah mengaplikasikan penggunaan teknologi BIM pada proses pelaksanaannya antara lain pembangunan bendungan Lausimeme pada Direktorat Jenderal Sumber Daya Air, dan pembangunan jalan tol Manado Bitung oleh Direktorat Jenderal Bina Marga, pembangunan Stadion Manahan Solo oleh Direktorat Jenderal Cipakarya, serta pembangunan apartemen Pasar Rumput oleh Direktorat Jenderal Perumahan. Penerapan BIM dinilai sebagai salah satu terobosan mempercepat pembangunan infrastruktur. Karena BIM mampu mengintegrasikan informasi penjadwalan pekerjaan dalam model bangunan. Selain itu, BIM juga mampu mendokumentasikan dan menyimpan dengan baik semua informasi pekerjaan dan elemen-elemen bangunan dalam bentuk 3D sampai 8D pada setiap tahap pekerjaan. Mulai dari tahap perencanaan, tahap pelaksanaan konstruksi, sampai dengan tahap pengoperasian dan pemeliharaan bangunan. Semua data dan informasi yang tersimpan juga dapat dikolaborasikan dan dikoordinasikan oleh semua stakeholder yang terlibat dengan cepat namun terkontrol. Melalui penerapan teknologi BIM, diharapkan dapat memberikan nilai tambah dalam penyelesaian pembangunan infrastruktur dengan peningkatan efisiensi komunikasi antar pemangku kepentingan konstruksi dan efektivitas penyimpanan data. Adapun terkait keberlanjutan data dan informasi, hal ini bermanfaat bagi pengguna jasa khususnya pemerintah. Karena data yang aktif dan valid serta tersimpan dengan baik merupakan kunci utama bagi dasar penyusunan kebijakan. Sedangkan bagi kontraktor dan konsultan, teknologi BIM meningkatkan akurasi dan presisi data dalam perencanaan dan pelaksanaan pekerjaan. Pemanfaatan BIM juga bermanfaat bagi para pakar dan peneliti pengembangan teknologi. Pada kesempatan yang berbahagia ini, kami berharap acara webinar ini dapat menjadi sarana edukasi dan knowledge sharing yang memberi manfaat besar dalam mendorong kemajuan penerapan inovasi teknologi di Indonesia, terutama penerapannya pada proyek pekerjaan pembangunan konstruksi, sehingga mutu pekerjaan dan kualitas hasil pembangunan dapat lebih meningkat di masa yang akan datang. Demikian yang dapat kami sampaikan. Terima kasih. Menteri Pekerjaan Umum Perumahan Rakyat, Basuki Hadi Mulyono. Terima kasih. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Kembalikan ke Nadia.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you very much, Mr. Trisasongko Widianto, for your speech. Before we continue, I would like to give a brief summary of Mr. Trisasongko's speech, representing the Minister of Public Works and Public Housing of the Republic of Indonesia, Mr. Basuki Hadi Mulyono. Mr. Trisasongko said that digital transformation is one of the goals of national development in Indonesia. And in the current era of the COVID-19 pandemic, it is hoped that opportunities will arise to accelerate this digitalization. All right, next, I will now let the speakers to turn on your camera, since we will have a photo session with Mr. Trisasongko Widianto and Mr. William, and all the speakers for today's webinar. Can you please turn on your camera to all speakers? And I'm going to count from 1 to 3. Then I'm going to go over it one more time. So we're going to take 2 photos. All right. Is everyone ready? Are you ready? Okay, all right. I'm gonna 1, 2, 3. Cheese. All right, one more time. 1, 2, 3. Okay, thank you very much, everyone. I'm sorry. Okay, after this photo session for His Excellency Mr. Trisasongko Widianto, should you have another agenda, you are allowed to leave the webinar. And on behalf of PT MRT Jakarta, please allow me to express our gratitude. Thank you very much. Once again, Mr. Trisasongko
Thank
Widianto.
you. Terima kasih, Bapak. Sukses. Izin live.
Thank you very much for the support from Ministry of Public Works and Public Housing of Republic Indonesia. Next, we will get to know more about our partner, Bentley, as you must be curious about the company as well, right? For that, we will watch together Bentley company video. Here we go.
Around the world, engineers and architects, constructors and owner-operators are using Bentley's software solutions to design, build and operate the infrastructure that sustains our economy and our environment. Together, we are advancing infrastructure.
It is the front of house for our Emirates. So we wanted to do something spectacular, something iconic, something everybody will remember.
We chose Bentley. There are not many competitors who could do a project on this scale.
We wanted to use technology, digital technology, to do it in the best possible way. For this, we use Bentley software.
We're very proud of the association with Bentley Sachs. It's allowed us to be a leader in the industry.
And more important is, the Bentley management has worked with us to help us feel that comfort to work with Bentley. And that is what is driving us.
Bentley, advancing infrastructure.
Wow, amazing. I would like to invite you all to give Bentley a virtual applause. Can we? Okay. Next, ladies and gentlemen, there will be 6 speakers for today's webinar. They are Ms. Sylvia Halim, Mr. B.H. Yap, Mr. Paul King, Ms. Debbie Smith, Ms. Nur Zalida Ahmad, and Mr. Jude Tedos George. But before we continue, I would like to remind all the participants, if you want to ask any questions to the speakers, please drop your questions in the Q&A box. You can find the box besides the raise hand symbol, I think. And do not forget to mention your name, institution, or organization. And please mention to whom the questions is addressed. And the speakers will then answer the questions in the discussion section or last agenda for this webinar. All right. So the first presentation will be brought by Ms. Sylvia Halim as the construction director of PT MRT Jakarta Perseroda. Ms. Sylvia will be explaining implementation of digital construction in MRTJ project. Ma'am, the time is yours.
Thank you, terima kasih Nadia. Selamat pagi, salam hormat, salam sehat untuk kita semua. In the spirit of Gado-Gado, allow me to also deliver my my presentations in perhaps in a mixed language. Although my material will be in English. Yeah. I also like to begin by welcoming and thanking my fellow speakers and panels this morning. We really appreciate their participations and their supports in this morning's webinar to allow us to have these sessions and then have a knowledge sharing sessions with everybody in Indonesia. So I'd like to begin by perhaps answering the questions why MRT Jakarta is pursuing digitalizations in our constructions. Perhaps the slides. Yeah. First of all, the first is because of the lesson learned that we had from phase 1 projects. Yeah. Be it from the implementations, the project implementation itself, and also subsequently after we complete during the assetizzations. Yeah. So we had a lot of difficulties also especially during assetizzations. There are so many documents, informations that we have to gather, and also we have to collect, yeah. And we find that we have to find a smarter way. We have to do better, you know, because if we keep doing on in this same manual method, right? We will have a lot of difficulties going forward of ensuring the integrity of our data. Yeah. And secondly, of course, we are motivated by the fact that we want to carry out our network expansions. Yeah. In fact, the ambition is that we want to accelerate our network expansions. So, of course, to do that, we have to do it in the most efficient and effective way. But also, how we can do it is such that we can ensure the standard of the qualities of each of our network. Yeah. And lastly, of course, as we begin this journey of digitalizations, we were hit by the pandemic last year, you know, and it simply just demonstrated how much important it is and critical for us to really carry out the digitalizations in the constructions so that it will allow us to carry out our works, you know, even though with that such situations, we still we still able to carry out our projects. Yeah. Our expectations is that through the digitalizations, we can hope to see there is an enhanced collaborations between the project stakeholders with a single and common platforms. Yeah. This stakeholders means us as the project owners, our consultants, our contractors, and even with the authorities. Yeah. And then, of course, we hope that with digitalizations, it will allow us to provide visualizations and minimize rework during constructions. Again, this is to achieve efficiency in our delivery. And as I mentioned, you know, in the network expansions, building up many lines going forward to the future, is that we hope that we will still be able to achieve a standardizations in our business process and also the quality. Yeah. And enhancing traceability and accountability of our informations, project informations from the different packages of contracts. And of course, is a centralized data repository as a main source of information for the projects. Yeah. So everybody who are involved in the projects can look into from the same source of information in the implementation of the projects. And therefore, to achieve that, we are implementing the building information modeling, BIM. Yeah. And I think we can see here by definitions, BIM is not just about building a 3D model. It's about also integrating project data and informations so that will allow us to use that 3D, we call it intelligence 3D object models to facilitate from the design, constructions, operations, and so on. So it allows us to manage the project for the entire life cycle of the asset that we are building. Yeah. So that is why we are doing this in MRT Jakarta. No, so the next question would be that, what are we trying to achieve here? Yeah. So our visions would be that we want to deliver a public transportation solutions in the most effective, efficient, and safe manner. Yeah, on time and on budget in its constructions activities. So we are not just about focusing about the final outcome, the output of our works, but we also want to see how the delivery process of it can be done in the most effective and efficient way. Yeah. And for that, of course, it requires us to not just change our business practices, but also the mindset. And we believe that is probably the toughest part, because for so long, we have been doing work in certain manners, in a certain way, and then now we have to embark into these transformations. And our target would be that we want to achieve a BIM maturity level 2 in accordance to the ISO 19650. And what does this BIM level 2 means? Basically, it allows us not just building the 3D model itself, but everybody who are building the 3D models and the project data itself can be shared using a common file, and so that we can form a unified BIM models. So this is what we are trying to achieve in the next few years ahead through the implementations from the start of through the visions of this phase 2 as a start. Okay. Now, how do we want to do it? Yeah. So for us in MRT Jakarta, we are utilizing the BIM, of course, with the platforms that we call common data environments. It is a single source of information that allows us to have some of these features, such as the first one is electronic document management systems. I believe this is probably a feature that a lot of projects nowadays already been using it and implementing it in various projects. But the next one that we want to highlight is about the coordination and the collaborations of all the various project stakeholders, project members to carry out document and BIM models review review and evaluations online and can be carried out from any locations concurrently. So this is probably what has allows us to be able to carry out our projects last year, even though in the midst of the pandemic, with our contractors and consultants, even ourselves are scattered around the place and we couldn't meet in one locations. But with these platforms, it allows us to do so from wherever we are, and so the projects can continue on. And of course, another powerful features that we are utilizing here is actually the integrations of asset data with the BIM in the asset information models. So here, basically, in each of our parts that we build, every part of asset that we build, we can attach information to that parts. Starting from the design informations, the inspections information, the testing informations, the material informations, everything. Basically in just one single click of that particle parts, we can get all those informations. And this is something that we are very excited because this will allow us to have a better management in our asset management. And of course, the third one, the last one is that about the 4D simulations that allows us to see the 3D models with respect also the project schedulings. So again, it will assist us better in identifying clashes that might happen, and then we can better address it early on. Yeah. And next is that, as I mentioned earlier, is that with this CDE common data environments, platforms, all stakeholders of the projects are inside the same platforms. So here, as you can see here, what we try to demonstrate is that how we as the project owners, the consultants, and all the contractors involved in these projects are basically in the same ecosystems, yeah, in the same platforms, collaborating to carry out and to deliver these projects. And so basically for this, we as the project owners, we set the requirements in the forms of employers' information requirements, as well as the asset information requirements that becomes the guideline for all the stakeholders in these projects for the information management and also the BIM implementations. So that although contractors, consultants, and their partners may be using different software or solutions, the output will still be able to be unified, in one single model. And this is how we like to share the implementations of the BIM throughout the project cycle. So you can see it started from the beginning, from the inceptions, until the handing over and the operations stage. And throughout the project cycle itself, we roll out and we utilize all the various features that we have with the BIM and the CDE, and in the sequential manners, as we can see here. Yeah. So of course, talking about designs, model developments and analysis to be the starting points. After that, we can carry on to carry out virtual design reviews, 3D coordinations and class detections, and of course the 4D simulations. And then towards the end, we will carry out the 3D laser surveying verifications. And lastly is about the asset informations modeling that we will have. So this is the entire cycles for the implementations of BIM that we can expect in the MRT Jakarta Phase 2 projects. Now I'd like to share that we have been implementing this for the past 1 year since we started the Phase 2 projects in June 2020. And we are, so basically we will say that we are also still learning, yeah. And we know that it was not going to be easy, but we believe this is the future of constructions. Yeah. And I'd like to share with everybody some of the challenges that we have. Of course, when we start to implement changes, we want to start on transformations. We will have issues about familiarities, and then also about changing working cultures and mindsets. And I like to say this is one of the most difficult part, yeah. And of course, everybody here is actually going through the learning curve, yeah. Be it the MRT Jakarta, our consultants, and also even our contractors. And what we also like to share is that if for anybody perhaps that would like to embark on the implementations of BIM in their organizations or in their projects, what we can share from our experience is that first thing is to set the goals and the scope of the BIM implementation that you would like to achieve. And then do carry out benchmarkings to learn, and find out as much as possible from the various industries, especially those that is, in our case, is construction industries, make the necessary cost and benefit analysis, and then select the most suitable software or tools that is the most suitable for you. And of course, the most important thing is that to customize that software and tools that suits your business requirements. This is something that we also experienced as we started to implement, how it's really important not just to take from the shelf, but how actually it can be customized that suits to the way you carry out your business. Yeah. And of course, the most important is that to have the full support from the management, from the organizations, because it is a commitment, and it takes everybody's to be on board to carry this. And for MRT Jakarta, it's ourselves, we are doing our digital transformations in MRT Jakarta. So this is part of that journey. And what's next then for us is that we hope that we will be able to achieve certifications in our BIM model level 2 in the next 2 years. And for that, of course, we have to develop our team, and ensuring a consistent implementations of the BIM systems, and of course, accelerating our capacity and capability. And of course, finally, we hope that we will be able to reach BIM level 3. But to do that, we hope that we can collaborate with everybody in the industries and keeping ourselves abreast with the latest technologies and also our own business processes. So with that, I end my presentations. And once again, I'd like to really thank Kementerian PUPR for their full support, not just for this event, but also for the digital transformation in this industry, for leading it, and also for pushing everybody in the industry to do that. And also, I would like to thank our partners, Bentley, and also all our fellow speakers today, and of course our contractors and consultants. Thank you. Back to you, Nadia.
Thank you very much for your presentation, Ms. Sylvia. Yes. Wow, amazing. And to all participants, as you may aware that BIM as a digital technology-based method which integrates 3D model objects with information or data, and thus creating an intelligent object model which help MRT Jakarta consultant and also contractor collaborates to monitor the progress of MRT Phase 2 project through a digital platform called CDE or Common Data Environment. This technological development has greatly helped PT MRT Jakarta, especially in the midst of a pandemic. Speaking of help, you can also help our performance better by filling out our survey. I promise it will only take just a few minutes. Also, for the participants that join in today's webinar, you will receive the certificate of attendance, but for the participants who also fill the survey, you will also receive an ebook from Bentley, and the survey link will be popped up after the webinar. Thank you. And next presentation will be brought by Mr. B.H. Yap as C-Beam Lead and C-Railway System Lead ICOM Singapore. Mr. B.H. Yap, will be explaining about collaborative beam workflow for rail and transit project. Sir, the screen is yours.
Yeah, thank you. All right, thank you, Naya, for the introductions. I think in the earlier presentations that is given by Ms. Sylvia, which I think that demonstrate a very good showcase, to the consulting industry, how the client is actually mandating the BIM mandate for their projects, and that which give a very clear instructions for the design industry consultancies, consultant like us to actually able to contribute in terms of the project delivery. So I think in my next presentation deck, I will showcase in terms of the collaborative BIM workflow that AECOM has adopted for KBMRT projects. So I will run through all our lesson learned in the next 20 minutes.
In contrast to the past when client only identified BIM or 2D deliverables, transportation clients such as MRTJs, LRT, MRTCs, and LTAs has set a high BIM expectations in their new projects to meet PAS 1192 standards, where project information models and asset information models need to be maintained throughout the project life cycles in the form of digital twin. And this become major challenges to the consulting industry, as how are we going to achieve what the client is asking. In the next couple of decks, I will walk through with everyone in terms of the challenges. So in project adopting digital twin, we can see the engineering impact that it leads to, as the client is no longer just focusing on the physical asset. Indeed, they are expecting the contractors as well as the consultants to share all the real-time design informations in the digital twin platform throughout the project life cycles. And that is to facilitate in terms of visualizations as well as all the checkings by the engineers. And the sharing of these virtual informations shall be developed based on the same specification of the physical asset. And we will need to model all these elements to the right level of details, and not to forget where to keep all these associated design documentation, specifications, and inspection form. In realities, the consultants still face the following challenges in adopting level 2 BIM. Inappropriate common data environment. So there are clients still selecting EDMS platform and expecting that platform to perform digital twin functions. Resistant to change, and always as usual, we still have engineers who always prefer to stay in their 2D workflow. Unavailable information to plan MIDP and TIDP. So that is referring to the Master Information Delivery Plan and Task Information Delivery Plan. So if all these detailed information for design is not being shared to the BIM team, there's no way we can create the placeholders within the virtual environments in the CDE. Unclear requirement from clients. So if the expectations on the BIM standard as well as the BIM use is not clearly defined, I think that is going to create some contractual issues between the design consultants when we bid for the projects. In this step, we are looking into the potential BIM failures that is due to the lack of standards. So you can look into this list of documents that should be used as a benchmark for all the tenderers where they bid for new projects. And also next, this will be some of the potentials BIM failures that's due to unmanaged BIM process. And commonly, I think that's due to the fact of lagging on the common data environment, which is not been set up to allow stakeholders to share their design informations. And due to that, there's no proper workflow being defined, and there's no traceabilities and accountabilities for all this design information that is being shared. And most of the time without a CDE, I think we also face the issues that the data will be too fragmented and unstructured, and that cannot be used throughout the project life cycles. On the last common cause of BIM failures, that will definitely be the people factors. It could be the incompetent PIC being tasked to spearhead on the BIM implementation plan, or it could be the fact that the contractors fail to understand the actual owner requirement and underprice for the projects. It could be also on designers taking shortcut in modelings, or even worse, not participating on any of the BDR. And lastly, that will be on the lack of project onboardings and training plan for the project's stakeholders. So moving on, I will use KVMRT SSP line as a case studies to demonstrate how AECOM fully comply with the MRTC's BIM requirements. So back in 2016, MRTC has mandated BIM level 2s to be imposed to all the underground work packages. And it's not just about 3Ds and BIM models deliverables, but MRTC has defined that all documents, drawing, data, and models will have to be shared in real time with the MRTCs in their CDE platforms. And this posed to be one of the biggest challenge that AECOM has encountered, as there are an extensive of informations that need to be shared to and fro between the designers, contractors, as well as MRTCs. This is the CDE system architectures for SSP line set up by MRTCs, adopting Bentley solutions. So on the left-hand side, we can see there's a project-wise, which is meant to be used as a project delivery space. So all the design integrations activities for all the file sharings will happen in that modules. Whereas on the right-hand side, that is on the asset information space. So AECOM will upload all our designs informations, such as the specification, report, change management, and our asset tag into this module. So Gamuda has managed to secure the underground work package from MRTCs, and AECOM has been appointed as the lead design consultants as well as the detailed design consultants for the 13.5 kilometers of tunnels that consists of 10 underground stations and 7 ancillary structures. Right. We have realized in the early phase of the projects that our design workflow, which is 2D orientated, is training to meet the KVMRT standard, which is driven by BIM Level 2. That emphasizes a lot of design integrations as well as accuracy of asset informations that need to be maintained throughout the project life cycles in the CDE platforms. This early exposure on these findings actually allowed us to implement various corrective actions with the support of our clients' Gamudas. And that has actually allowed us to beef up on our quality of works and as well as on the adoption on BIM Level 2 workflow. I will share in the following decks on all these corrective actions. So first, let's see how we change the people mindset as well as the work culture. The design models coordinations for a metro project will be very complicated due to the nature of multidisciplinary. So if you look into the current model breakdown structures, it contains typical station models will contain CNS, ARCI, multiple M&E models. And apart from that, we will still need to factor in on the system models that contain track work, signaling, PSD, AFC, ISCS. And all these informations eventually will need to be federated and coordinated as part of the CSD SEM exercise. So what we need to appoint is a clear role and responsibilities that is top-down basis. And we will need to make sure that we have identified a very strong lead coordinators who will take the ownerships of each station designs models and use the models for coordinated and ensure that these informations will be fit for CSD SEM drawing productions. So at the start of the projects, what AECOM did is we have actually mapped down in terms of all the work packages between all our different DDC contractors. And we have identified and tasked every detailed designers to take up certain work packages so that they will have to be responsible on the quality of the federated models of their respective stations. So this just illustrates in terms of the top-down approach and the clear design responsibilities that has been structured within our detailed designers. So by doing that, I think we have been managed to eliminate on a lot of design clashes, as all the coordinators will have now to be responsible for all their design issues. We have also tried to change the mindset of our engineers to make sure that they are able to voice out in terms of all their design issues when they collaborate with all other design disciplines, right? And we are also stopping all our engineers making changes on their design in silos, where all the design changes will need to be flagged up in the VDR forums. And we are also tasking one of our designers to lead on that design process to make sure that they are accountable for all the design status as well as the quality of the models. Next, we will show how we engineer the right process using the collaborative approach for the design. In the early phase of the SSP lines, AECOM has adopted a conventional information cut-off date between the CSD SEN team with the ISD, all right, in order to proceed with all their design submissions. So this is supposed to be one of the biggest issues that we have. As you can see from these diagrams, the design activities will always start at the stage of updated pre-finals, where architects and structurers has finished up their layout on the station arrangement and pass it to our E&M counterparts to proceed with the E&M designs. So a set of these informations will be passed to our CSD SEM drawing production teams and dealing the models. So the CSD SEM will be focused in arranging all the services, trays, and crossings of all their ducts within this CSD SEM production environments. Whereas for the ISD, the designers will continue to progress once the archi and the structurers have updated their revision B drawings based on their engineers' comments. And due to that, we can see that the ISD services will never be tallied with the coordinated CSD models, right? And we have spent too much effort in the CSD drawing productions and we have achieved nothing. So moving ahead for KVMRT's SSP lines, we have identified that to be one of the biggest issues. And rather than we focus in terms of the outcome of the 2D deliverables, what we have managed to convince MRTCs is to drop off in terms of one key milestone submission, which is the pre-finals. And we are getting all our designers to work collaboratively, looking into one single models, rather than we delaying our CSD SEM from the federated models. So by doing that, what we have agreed is to conduct bi-weekly VDR workshops where all the key issues will be identified jointly between MRTCs, clients, contractors, and the consultant together with SWCs. And all this is being managed in a very structured environment. So you can see this is one of the mini programs that has been rolled out by AECOM, where we have actually break down all our detailed design packages based on 14 days reviews cycles with all our design disciplines together with the system-wide contractors, so that we can get everyone to focus on the qualities of federated models. So that VDR will be arranged in different batches, and each work packages will be assigned with a lead design coordinators who is accountable on the qualities of the outcome of the design coordinations. So this is one of the typical agendas that will be tabled during the VDR sections, where the lead coordinators will not just look into the clashes of the models, but we will focus in terms of the deliverable dates and what is the key date reviews and whether there is any changes in terms of the designs. All right. And from there, we will look into the modeling's progress update based on the last VDR meetings. Then we will review in terms of the clashes status before we will go through the BIM collapse status update and recap of the following actions. So this is the typical VDR 14-day cycles that AECOM has mandated and imposed to all our DDCs. So this program will outline in terms of all the role and responsibilities for the design coordinators, BIM coordinators, as well as the lead designers, when and what activities should be conducted to support the VDR workshop. And this is one of the snapshots of how AECOM used the Navisworks to carry out our VDR process and how we actually track all the design issues using the slave viewpoint in Navisworks. Due to the extensive numbers of clash issues that we have identified in Navisworks, Garuda has also invested on the issue management platform like BIM Collapse that allow AECOM to record all the issues that were registered in Navisworks, where we can more effectively track the number of issues and assign all the items to a specific project stakeholders for action closures. And this has been proved to be very efficient as we are able to walk through in terms of the status of the projects in every VDR. And this is the snapshot on our Central West stations, all our design issues that we have recorded and uploaded into the BIM Collapse platforms. So apart from just tracking on all these design issues, one of the beauty of this software is it allows the designers to bring all these clash issues and all this view to and forth into our Revit using the BCF markup functions. So apart from the models, workflow, and integrations, another key important aspects that need to be ironed out will be on the overall design process, as well as the workflow that need to be identified and mapped out by the BIM teams. I think that will be very important, especially when the client is expecting the consultants to deliver end-to-end BIM level 2. Where we need to start with the end in mind on what need to be submitted throughout the design deliverables, right? And with that understandings, the designers will need to identify in the earlier phase of the projects on what is the master information delivery plan, as well as what is the task information delivery plan to be submitted to the MRTCs. And with that, we will need to establish our master tracking list and how are we going to set and how that is going to tie back with the master program that is based on the baselines submission key dates. And with that key dates, the designers and our designer teams will need to work backward together with our engineering teams. How are we going to achieve our design submissions? Once we have aligned in terms of the model workflow as well as the deliverables management for the 3D models, AECOM has started looking into the process, how we can actually automate in terms of all our sheet drawing, production drawings, so that the presentation of our E&M CSD drawings could meet with the traditional drawing presentations that is mandated in the MRTC's CAD menus, right? So what we did is we have actually looked into the automation process using Dynamo to automate and link in terms of the drawing productions and the creations of all these openings and taggings to make sure that it conforms with the MRTC's CAD standards. So a part of the automations in drawing productions, we have also adopted computation modeling using generative components with Bentley Open Rail software, where we have carried out the tunnels, underground tunnels model productions to minimize menus input and update. And that has actually reduced our manpowers and improved in terms of the qualities and the accuracies of the underground design models. Next, I will cover on the technology and BIM standards AECOM applied for the SSP line. As MRTC has mandated BIM Level 2 workflow in their common data environment, the designer will have to ensure that when we submit all our design documentations, models, and drawings, we will have to adopt the agreed naming conventions as well as the drawing revisions versionings standard that actually classified the documentation, whether that is meant for checking, review, or approve based on the milestone date that is defined by MRTCs. And this is the snapshot of the project-wise environment set up for KVMRT, where our designers will need to ensure that all their design discipline file is correctly uploaded to the right locations. And this is the typical folders structures that it will be applied for every design disciplines, which contain on 2D drawings, 3D models, PDF renditions, as well as a report. So we have standardized in terms of the structures on this presentation and documentations. So every engineers from different discipline will know where to retrieve the necessary informations for their designs. With all the corrective action in place on the people, process, and technologies, AECOM managed to get all our designs users to work collectively in the project-wise platforms, and we are able to start to share, upload all our design documentations that is based on MRTC standard. Similarly, for asset information models, AECOM has also cleaned up the asset data and libraries and upload all these informations into the asset-wise platform. And before the end of the presentations, I'll give you a very quick fly-through on the final outcome on the qualities on our 3D models that is been built up to the level of details of 300s. So what we're looking at is the TT Wangsa federated models. So we have models, we have actually models all the design disciplines. So early on, we have these CNS models, the architectural models, and we are looking into the MEP models, and you can look into the complicated, how complicated the information it is. And next, that will be on the system OWC's models, where we have models all the different system services. And we have federated, and with that, all the models, we have federated into one single models, and we will use this, and the designers will use this for all the design coordinations, fly-through, clash detections, and designs collaborations. And we will walk through to check whether there's any design clashes. And this is the typicals, and we have managed to cut the sections. So this is the TT Wangsa station tunnel trackway, and you can look into the level of details that has been captured by AECOM, where we have worked with the SWCs extensively to build up the level of details to achieve this fly-through. So this deck reflects the outcome of our BIM Level 2 workflow, where all the 2D drawings is true reflections from the 3D models that has been developed. And this is the SEM drawings, where all the openings is all extracted out directly from our CNS and architectural models on all the wall openings as well as the slab openings. The CSD SEM has also demonstrated a very good level of coordinations, where we are not just avoiding clashes between services, but we also consider in terms of all the coordination requirements for equipment delivery, as well as the human access, where the specifics clearance envelope has been modeled to demonstrate the achievement on this clearance. In my last deck for the day, I would like to summarize in terms of today's key findings. First of all, in order to achieve a good collaborations and adoptions on BIM Level 2 workflow, I think it is very important that we need to change the engineers' silo mindset, that they need to work more collaboratively into the environment. And next, the process of BIM, we always need to start with the end in mind, planning and understanding what is the deliverable at the start of the projects. And this information shall be shared among all different stakeholders. And next, it will be on the accountabilities. How are we going to structure and lead on the BDR effectively to make sure that all the design issues can be taken away by the engineers and come back with the resolutions. And we should also adopt a consistent approach on how we intend to manage our project information models as well as our asset information models. A good standard of documentation need to be in place to ensure that all this data will be populated in the consistent manners to avoid rework. And lastly, I think that which is the most important aspect is that the clients will need to dictate in terms of the BIM requirements and govern the entire train process with the contractors. With that, I will end my presentations of the day, and I would like to thank you everyone for your time in running through this with me. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your presentation, Mr. Yap. And as we can from the presentation, the BIM technology, every items are interlinked to form an intelligent digital asset registered in the system, to 2D drawings, 3D models, material lists, vendor data, even all data distribution. And yes, it requires a good planning and understanding for the sake of achieving a successful collaboration. All right, before we continue, I would like to welcome all participants of today's webinar from Indonesia, Singapore, and several other countries, which currently has achieved 800 people. Welcome, and we're still halfway through, so don't worry about missing out. And for anyone who wants to ask, do not hesitate to drop your questions on the chat box. And all the participants that join in today's webinar will receive the certificate of attendance. And only for the participants who fill out the survey, will also receive an ebook from Bentley. I assure you that you don't want to miss it. So don't forget to take the survey, and the survey link will be popped up after the webinar. All right. The next presentation will be brought by Mr. Paul King as Industry Director, Construction Operation of Bentley, and also along with Ms. Debbie Smith as Service Director of Bentley. Mr. Paul King and Ms. Debbie Smith will be explaining about delivering best practice infrastructure projects. Mr. Paul and Ms. Debbie, time is yours.
Thank you, and good morning, everyone. And thank you for inviting us to present at this important event. So my name is Paul King, and I work in the construction team at Bentley. I'm joined today by my colleague, Debbie Smith, and we're going to consider 3 areas that are important to delivering best practice infrastructure projects. They are the industry context, the technology landscape, and asset operations. So firstly, why do we need to change how we deliver our projects? Well, McKinsey reported recently that the average large project takes 20% longer than planned and can be up to 80% over budget. And the project numbers help to show why. With more than 1,000 people from over 180 companies sharing more than 2 million documents, projects are really complicated. And technology can play an important part in changing how we design and execute projects, and also how we can reskill the workforce to take advantage of that technology. Now, we see 3 areas that are causing problems in construction project delivery. The first is project complexity. So designs are becoming more ambitious and supply chains are getting more extensive. The second is resource limitations. There's a growing lack of skilled labor and materials are getting more expensive. And of course, COVID has had its own impact. The third is data deficiency. Data silos are still common and data can be very poor quality and it's often hard to find. Now, FMI did some research recently and they published a report looking at data in engineering and construction. And they found that 96% of all the data that's generated is unused. A third of companies use apps and software that isn't integrated. And 13% of working hours are spent just looking for data. So what that means is we only use 4% of the data, but we still spend more than half a day a week just trying to find it. Now, these are some of the typical technologies you'll see being used on projects, everything from 2D up to mixed reality. And I've highlighted 4D planning to show the benefit that even simple advancements can bring. And there's an example here with Ryan companies in the US, and they save 4 weeks off their schedule for every 8 months of construction, simply by linking their 3D models to a schedule. Now, should you be doing all of these pieces of technology? Probably not, but you should be considering when and how you'll get started. And if you're a supplier in the industry, you also need to be asking yourself what your competitors might be doing. So enough about data. What about some of the technology? Well, you might have seen this. This is Spot, the robotic dog. It costs around 75,000 US dollars. So here it is walking around the lab. It can communicate and cooperate with other devices. But they've now moved out of the lab and these devices are being tested on site. So they can navigate stairs, they can move around obstacles. This particular device is being used to photograph and inspect a steel connection. So they're starting to find practical applications out on site. But also simpler devices are being seen. So this is a basic road marking machine, and it's not as exciting as a robotic dog, but it probably is more cost effective. So that brings me on to looking at the technology landscape and digital construction. And there are several important areas to consider when you're planning how to implement technology on a construction project. It starts with creating high quality components. You then need robust workflows to manage your content, and that content has to be put in context. If you get that right, then you have the basis of a digital twin. You can then hand over smart asset information to the owner and operator for their asset operations. So I'll take a brief look at some of those. Now, when we talk about creating digital components, we mean vertical and linear assets, as with this railway example. And the industry has access to the latest design and BIM technology. And it's really important to use those to get the design right. Your design information needs to be complete, consistent, and correct as early as possible in the process. And this is one of our newest BIM tools. This is Open Rail Overhead Line Designer, and it was co-developed with Siemens. And it can be used on a wide range of projects, including light rail and metros, heavy rail, and high-speed rail. And the animation was created by exporting the BIM content into LumenRT to visualize it. And importantly, it's reusing that same design content. Now, best practice workflows ensure that your data is managed securely and effectively. A common data environment, or a CDE, supports that robust BIM process. And a CDE is actually a simple principle. It stores and manages content created by the team, and it delivers that to the right people in the right format at the right time for the task in hand. And the recent ISO standard means that there's no longer an excuse for not using best practice collaboration. But really, why should you care about using a best practice CDE? Well, here's a simple example of why you should care. This is an example where McDonald worked on the design of the Thames Tideway project in London. It's one of the UK's largest ever water projects. They had 12 design disciplines across Europe, and their CDE meant they could cut their design time by 1/3, simply by using best practice collaboration. So that's a huge reduction in design time, simply by using a CDE. And in this region, this is another great example. This is Malaysia's MRT Corporation, where they've been using the power of Microsoft's cloud services to support their CDE and their cloud working. And they're forecasting a 35% improvement in productivity over the life of the project. So using simple technology that's commonly available, there are some really big improvements that can be gained. So moving on to context. Surveying technology means that it's easy to place and review components in their correct context. In this example, we're looking at a rusted column, and we've taken a series of photographs on a phone. The Context Capture Cloud service converts them into an accurate 3D model that I can review on my phone and share with other team members. Or I could also use it to model the excavation of underground services you can see here. Now, this is a very impressive example from Indonesia. You can see where photographs have been used to create highly detailed reality models for a railway project. So these are large reality models captured to a high level of detail and simply created using a cloud service. So these are dimensionally accurate and visually accurate images. Now, once we have the components and the workflows and the context, then we have the basis for a digital twin. And the simplest definition is that a digital twin is a digital representation of a physical asset, process, or system. But a twin is a living thing. It has to be continuously synchronized. And it should use data-driven workflows to optimize performance for project delivery. Now, digital twins are being enabled by advances in areas such as reality modeling, artificial intelligence, mixed reality, and machine learning. And more of this technology is becoming available every day. And it's getting a lot cheaper as well. And as an example of that, this is the HoloLens in 2015. So you can see that things come a long way very quickly. Now, on a construction site, the construction digital twin involves inputs of data, such as design data, which could be drawings and models, pre-construction information, and data feeds coming in from the field. And it uses those inputs to support construction workflows. So things like 4D planning, model-based estimating, and machine automation. And by doing that, we get a jump in productivity. And the important thing is that we're reusing information that we have already, but we're making smarter use of it. So I'll just show you some examples of digital twin workflows. In this example, you can see how we can create and share design information in the cloud. We have civil design models, point clouds, reality meshes, and all the data combined in one database in the cloud. And we can view it easily in a web browser. We can choose what information to see, and we can interrogate the data. So it makes that data really accessible in a trusted way. This example shows a tower block being built in London, and it's merging models of planned and actual progress with live camera feeds from site. And this helps the team to manage the works better, It helps them to manage the site logistics and to plan future work. And it also helps with communicating issues when they occur. And this example is from a large rail project. The construction team is using live models to investigate different scenarios for the path of construction and to compare planned and actual progress. It means they can identify issues early, and it helps to keep the project in control by enabling faster decisions. And you can see in the teams using local maps, and they're also using reality data generated using context capture. Now, when we have all this information stored and managed in our CDE, teams can use a live 4D model in the cloud to collaborate using a mobile app or a browser. In this case, we're looking at a large city-scale model simply using a web browser. You can see that comments and issues can relate to a time in construction as well as a physical space. And when a comment's saved, then the model view and the time are associated with that comment for future review. So it makes it very easy for people to track and manage and find information. Now, in this example, you can see how information and data can be made available to site engineers simply on a phone. You can quickly and easily view a 3D model, run a time-based construction sequence, interrogate the data, and raise an RFI or an issue based on what you're seeing on the phone. So the app is getting trusted, secure data from the connected data environment, and it's making it available to the right people at the right time for the job in hand. So how does a construction digital twin increase productivity and optimize outcomes? Well, it provides real-time data visibility in context. And that means that everyone is always on the same page. It provides 4D planning and 5D estimating. And that means that resources are optimized through the whole project and risks are reduced. And it provides operational efficiencies and business intelligence. And that means that teams can make faster decisions better. But of course, on every project, your data comes from different sources, different companies, and it's in different file formats. And so projects have to consider some key areas of alignment, accountability, and accessibility for their information and data. Data alignment ensures that you can take design information from different software and reuse it. Data accountability means that you know who created that information and what it can be used for. And data accessibility ensures that your construction teams can get the information they need by using their preferred device, wherever they are. Now, that's why Bentley develops iTwin services. So iTwins let projects store and manage different types of data in a cloud database. And iTwins are enabled by 3 key technologies. The first is iModels, and they're a container for digital components. Second, we have the iModel Hub. And the iModel Hub manages and maintains all that data and the changes over time. Thirdly, we have iModel.js. And iModel.js is the open source technology that enables people to view models, access their data, and synchronize that data across the project, as well as developing their own applications and workflows to make use of that data. So this iTwins technology is the backbone that enables the construction digital twin. Now, when you're working on a project, how does this come together? Well, what it means is that content creators on the left-hand side of this diagram can continue to work in their preferred tools. We have the iTwins bridging service that takes that design content and aligns it so that we can use it in a common format. And that data is then stored in a cloud database. The project team can then access that data in their own work, and they get access to the trusted data they need when they need it. And it's in the right format for the job in hand. So whether they're conducting a 4D analysis on their desktop machine, or whether they need to find a 3D model and raise an RFI using their phone, then they can simply log into their service, their construction service, and find that information. So for example, if your construction team is using Synchro, then they work with the connected in data environment through simple apps and web browsers. Now, the final part of our presentation looks at how you can use all of that design and construction data to operate your assets efficiently, effectively, and safely. So at this point, I'll hand over to Debbie.
Thank you, Paul. So we've looked at how we can utilize all of the components that the projects have been collecting through the design and construction phase. And now we're going to look at the most important part of the process and the operations. So over the life cycle of an asset, as we can see for the colleagues that Yip and Ibu, Sylvia and the team have actually been talking about through the CapEx cycle, is we're trying to optimize our design and construction costs by using the digital workflows, using our content, using our BIM collaboration processes so that we can optimize and deliver information in a more collaborative way. But what we know about the life cycle of an asset is that 80% of the life cycle costs are actually incurred during the operation and maintenance phase. So what we want to be able to do is extend our digital processes, extend our handover of our digital twin into the operations and maintenance phases so that we can look at optimizing our maintenance regime, reduce our costs, improve our profitability by enhancing our digital twin with now performance information and operating information. So it's very important to not lose sight of the great work and the great effort that the project teams have put in place to manage all of this content, to manage the asset through to the construction and handover into operations. But we certainly want to extend that now into the operational phase. So as Paul also indicated, there's a lot of time spent by users and people out in the field looking for information to do their particular roles. 30% of the workday for knowledge workers, as part of some of the figures that have been published, are still looking for information. Employees are spending nearly 1.5 hours every day. That's an average of 9.3 hours every week, again, searching and looking for information to do their job. And the reason behind all of this is that the majority of the data is not centrally managed or indexed. So we've seen the teams and the presenters actually talk about ways to bring all this information in a common and connected data environment so that our users, irrespective of their role, whether it's in the project, the design, construction, or operations phase of that life cycle, is now able to consume that information. So again, leveraging the ISO 9000 or 19650 standards, where we're looking at the process of optimizing our design, optimizing our project workflows, we want to also be able to now start connecting the systems that produce or manage our asset information. So allowing the teams to be able to connect these systems and to connect all these data sets will improve our asset quality and our accessibility by connecting these multiple data sources. So how do we do that? We've all been talking about the digital twin as it progresses through its life cycle. And now what we want to be able to do is enhance that digital twin so it can be continuously updated from operational sources, which is including sensors, continuous survey, looking at real-time status, looking at the actual working condition of those facilities and those assets as they are now in operation. So these digital twins enables our users to visualize the asset performance and to make analysis, to generate insights, to actually start predicting and optimizing their asset performance. So again, how do we do that? Well, through all of the design and construction, we've been looking at optimizing how we manage our handover and our drops of information through content. But very, very importantly, the asset handover is a key component of information. Let's not forget that when the operations and maintenance teams are out there in the field, they are working with a physical asset. They are working with physical components. They need to know what is the state of that asset, where did it come from, which information has been provided, and they need a central source of information to provide that. So the ISO 19650 process also brings to fore that we need to look at our asset information and ensure the supply chain are identifying it, collecting it, and handing it over in a format that we can use in operations. So how are we doing this? Well, the key for all of this is what we call the asset identifier. This identifier is the key that is going to hook together all the additional operational systems that we need to support and give us information in the operations phase. So through design and construction, we're collecting content, we're collecting 3D models, we're collecting all the information to how that asset was designed and constructed. So if we can hand over that information to operations in a contextual way, that they have an identifier and a mechanism to actually go out into the facility, look at a tag identifier, use a QR code or a mobile device to scan that, and it brings them into the context of the information, how much time will we be saving on that journey? This next slide is one of those a use case that actually will show how this team has used the asset identifier and actually physically tagging the components out in the field to bring some value.
Here at Pennsylvania Chemicals, we have the opportunity to be the plant of the future.
The more data we have, the smarter we have to get about managing it.
Everything at a site is located by an equipment tag. Findall uses that as the basis to connect all the different databases. We have complete accountability over 3 million documents and equipment tags on this site.
Now I can go to the tag number for my equipment and immediately find exactly what I'm looking for.
Digital twins use drones to take construction project snapshots on a weekly basis, and from these images we create accurate 3D models of the entire construction site.
This enables me to get a top-down view to quickly determine what we need to do. It's very effective.
Any reduction in time will mean literally waiting time that we'll avoid, and we have a safer project too. Here at Pennsylvania Chemicals, we have the...
So there you can see, again, the use of the tag identifier out in the field, enabling the teams on site to be able to use a mobile device to hook into the rich context of information that the digital twin and the common data environments are providing them. So looking at progressive asset information handover, this is really what we want to also encourage the supply chain to participate in the good asset information handover by progressively maturing the asset information. So we know by the time we get to detailed design, we need to know what the asset is, we need to have an identifier, we need to know what its prime characteristics are, we need to know what system it belongs to, and what other assets or components that asset is related to. When we move into construction, we now are capturing more information, we're affixing labels, we're starting to know what needs to be procured and installed. And physically, once those components are installed, we're capturing those dates, we're capturing the unique instances of those equipment through that life cycle. And then we need to validate that the information post-construction has all of the completeness to be able to hand over to the operations teams. So it's really key that through the project delivery, the information that operations and maintenance teams need in order to obtain reliable information to help them with their maintenance strategies, to do their predictive analytics, is really handed over, and the same level of governance that we put into managing our content and our 2D and 3D deliverables, the same rigor and the same governance needs to apply to our asset information. Here we see an example of the digital twin for a linear asset, where we can see again the 3D representation. We can see the actual condition of the rail and the infrastructure. And this just again brings a different view to the type of asset for that user. But every time we talk about the digital twin, what is the intent? The intent is to be able to hand over this information in a holistic contextual view, so our maintenance and operations teams can use devices out there and actually get access in context and in the facility as quickly as possible. So we look at maintenance, and very often we're seeing our maintenance teams keep talking about struggling with the time that it's taken to do a turnover, to fix an asset, to repair something, to look at the overall visibility of the health of that asset. And they're all consumed with a lot of data. Sorry? Is that okay?
Yes, you may continue.
Oh, sorry. And again, what we do see is that there's a lot of disconnected silos of information for these teams to connect to. If we look at then how we can satisfy that, this is looking at one of the component or the asset immersive operation solutions that Bentley provides, where now we've optimized that construction digital twin with real-time information coming from our reliability solutions and our CMMS systems. So we can see the documents that have been linked to those elements and those components are being surfaced by the common data environment. We can actually look at the alarm of that flash that's been flashing. We can actually get real-time sensor data from that particular alarm to understand why is it behaving in that component, why is it behaving in a particular way. So this is again connecting lots of information, not only from that original digital twin, but now optimizing that twin with real-time performance data, real-time maintenance information that now the maintenance and operations teams, as well as the engineers on site, can actually look at that information in context to the facility. The operations team have the same kind of requirement. What they want to be able to do is before they go out on site, they want to be able to look at the asset in context and actually say, if I have to repair that pump, how do I get there? How do I look at all the environment around me? So again, providing the visual twin to enable the operators to come into the system, to look at all that, to use augmented reality and to navigate through the facility to consume information that they require is key to operations. One of our case studies is Rocket Mind, is one of our system integrators that was challenged by a gold mining facility in South Africa to actually bring their engineers together in London in a collaborative way so that when the teams were on site doing repairs, the engineers could be on site with them. So using the concept of the performance digital twin and the portal that I've just demonstrated, these users have been able to now use augmented reality to access the information and collaborate with their engineers who are based in London. So we can see now that using the Microsoft augmented reality capability, this user is being able to now consume information from the performance digital twin. They can get access to 2D drawings. They can get access to their operational data and actually in a collaborative way coordinate what they are seeing on site with engineers in a completely different remote location. So we know in today's world, we can't always have all the teams on site on the facility to help us actually make decisions. So using this digital twin and the augmented reality is a means that we can actually bring people together in another collaborative space. So summarizing, again, asset information and information management is the foundation of our twin. It helps us to connect various sources of truth and to assist us in managing this information through the life cycle. It helps us not only maintain what was designed and what is authorized to be fitted, but it continues to bring that operational, as designed, as built, as maintained state for our users out there. So call to action. I was very encouraged to see Ibi Sylvia saying that MRTJ are aspiring to achieve level 3 in their BIM journey. So to ensure we get into BIM level 3, we have to connect all our operational systems into that next evolution of our twin. So bringing design construction into operations and maintaining that twin helps us deliver our operations and maintenance strategies. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the presentation, Mr. Paul King and Ms. Debbie Smith. And I would like to emphasize once again the highlighted points in this presentation, that the technology through connected data environment will show you the digital components, digital workflows, digital context, project digital twin, and asset operations. So it can identify the issues early and give the progress so the owner and contractors can make the decision faster. Is a win-win for everyone, right? All right, next, soon we will reach the end of our presentation session. For the last presentation, we will have Ms. Nur Zalida Ahmad as Head Corporate Relations Multimur Resources Malaysia, together with Mr. Jude Tados George as Head Digital Information Technology Multimur Resources Malaysia, who will be explaining about digitalizing Pan Borneo Highway Sarawak, not just a highway, it says. Mr. Jude and Ms. Noor, the screen is yours.
Thank you very much. Let's see, we got this right. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much, Nadia. And thank you everyone for having us, inviting us from Kuching, Sarawak, to join this webinar. We're indeed honored to, and we hope that we can share our experience on using Bentley's products, as well as developing BIM for the Pan Borneo Highway project. Like Nadia said, it enabled us to build more than a highway, as I always say. So my name is Nur Zalida, and my colleague Jude will come on in a second. I did communications at Laboraya Borneo Utara, and Jude was the head of the IT at Laboraya Borneo Utara. And our company was the former project delivery partner for the Pan Borneo Highway Sarawak Phase 1. So let's move on. Okay. Just to put in context, our company, Laboraya Borneo Utara, is a double award winner for Bentley's Year in Infrastructure Awards. We won in 2018 for the Roads and Highway category, and we won again in 2019 for the Roads and Rail Asset Performance category. Pan Borneo Highway, like I say, digitalization of infrastructure allowed us to build more than just a highway. This is where we're at, Sarawak. Sarawak is the largest state in Malaysia. The area is 124,451 square kilometers. It is, we're on the island of Borneo, and it takes us no less than, it's about 20 hours from here until here, from one end of Sarawak until Miri, which is Sarawak, where Sarawak meets the Brunei border. So it's a very long journey, large tracts of tropical rainforest, lots of rivers, and today we've gained independence in 1963, and we are still, the main transportation backbone across our wide state is still only a 2-lane single carriageway. So it's been, we say it's, we've been waiting for over 50 years for a better connectivity across our expansive state. We've been waiting for over 50 years for a more comfortable, a faster and a safer ride across Sarawak. So in 2015, the government decided, awarded the project to build the Pan Borneo Highway Sarawak, and it is a 4-lane dual carriageway. It's over 1,000 kilometers long. Construction started in 2016, and the original target for construction to complete was in 2021, 5.5 years, and that's around this time. But there was a little bit of a political hiccup, change in government and change in policy, as well as COVID. So now there's a revised completion date, and it's targeted for September next year, 2022. So this is where, this is a map of phase 1 of the Pan Borneo Highway, which our company was involved in. We were the project delivery partner. So phase 1 comprised 786 kilometers, and the work was divided into 11 works packages and further divided into 25 different sections. So these are all package 1, and they average between 60 to 90 kilometers. And we involved different contractors for each works package. So and that also was the beauty of having a common data environment where you could connect, even when you had multiple contractors, multiple subcontractors and vendors and consultants, all connected in one platform that made work a whole lot easier. Okay, this is a completed section of the Pan Borneo Highway today. So like I said, it's a 4-lane highway, a dual carriageway. And this is one of 115 pairs of bridges along this highway. This is the bridge at Durin. It's the longest of all the bridges at 1.708 kilometers. And this is a snapshot of an interchange. There are 24 interchanges along the Pan Borneo Highway. And this is a snapshot of a completed stretch. This is from package 1. This is in a greenfield. The highway actually, so, you know, when it's in a green field, it's the beauty of, you see what the impact is or where the highway was completed, suddenly the areas open up to more development. Like in this particular area, there's a lot of tourism potential, and we went there like last month, and you know, we can see that there's homestays opening up, resorts opening up, and you know, the whole impact of development is there in front of the eyes. But this picture also shares another thing. As I mentioned, Sarawak has a lot of rainforest, so we're building a highway in the rainforest, and that gives us another challenge. You cannot afford to go wrong, and that is why digitalization of infrastructure was so important for the Pan Borneo Highway Sarawak, not just during construction, not just during the design and construction, but also for the operations and maintenance later, for across the whole asset life cycle. So that is why digitalization was important. Okay. This, the government, we were very fortunate that when the Pan-Borneo Highway started, it was at the time when the Malaysian government was pushing for technology to drive transformation in the construction sector. They had a construction industry transformation program, and that was going to take them from 2016 to 2021. And one of the main thrusts was to use BIM, Building Information Modeling, as an important technology to enable the efficient and effective life cycle management. So that set the stage. And from there, the government, when it came for the Pan-Borneo, it was actually built into the contract that they wanted to have a BIM, they wanted to have a lot more use of the technology during the whole project phases of construction up till operations and maintenance. So I'll say the setting was very right for Pan-Borneo, and for those of us who are part of it, we were very, very lucky and to see it unfold. So I'm going to, at this point, I'm going to bring in my colleague, Jude, who was the head of digital information technology for Pan-Borneo Highway, and he can share how it really worked in our case.
Okay, good morning, everyone. Thank you, Puan Zalida, for the introduction. Now, we'll move towards the challenges and that we face during the whole, our objectives and challenges that we face. What we wanted at that time as a project delivery partner was to improve our project delivery, as well as cost efficiency optimization. And something new, which in Sarawak here, was to create a BIM culture, because because what we wanted was for our stakeholders to have a better management on the assets later on, as well as capacity building. This is whereby we had 11 coordinators and 55 BIM modelers to assist us in our BIM delivery. Now, the challenges that we face is one of it is changing the mindsets of people, especially the contractors in Sarawak on a linear project, because to them, they are, how should I put it, quite traditional in their work. So with the government pushing for digitalization and us spearheading that for the government's behalf, this was a huge challenge faced by them. Another one is connectivity. Now, Sarawak, for some of you who may not have been yet, have not come here yet, we have connectivity issues with some of our work packages, especially those in rural areas, whereby only C-band connectivity is available. So that also posed as another challenge for us to deliver our systems throughout the whole project. And the other one was on the investment for the system, whereby since we were using Bentley product predominantly, we literally had to put in our contractors' agreement that for them to procure a certain number of software licenses so that the system can be used collectively and transparently throughout the whole organization. Now, these two, I mean, literally put, they were working with a minimum of 5 licenses at the worst conditions. So even then, everything was worked it out, served out, so it's okay. Now, for our stakeholders, as you can see here, we have 11 design consultants and 11 work packages contractors, which we had to, which were working with us, Laboraya Borneo Utara, as well as 46 design sub-consultants and subcontractors. Now, at that time, we were using ProjectWise as our CDE, Common Data Environment, because what was mandated to us was that everyone has to be connected, and using ProjectWise, we managed to do this, especially in our reporting to our stakeholders, which were the Ministry of Works Malaysia and Public Works Department of Sarawak. So while through using the system, we basically had everyone connected. Now, the benefits of digitalization that we had in Pembrone Sarawak was that we had better design and construction coordination between the whole team throughout the whole state, and then better data integrity, because we actually had, right then we had a structured data storage as well as data bank, and detection of clashes, which we achieved through the, should I say, HIM, which is what we call highway information modeling. So this reduced the rework, direct costs, and eliminated delays. Now, how we did it over here was that we literally had what we call integrated project management system, which consisted of our Bentley's PIMS. We utilize HIM, which is highway information modeling, aptly named because we're doing a linear project. And then we have WebGIS through our partnership with S3. So now all this was used during our design and construction period. So looking at the asset management at a later date, which is why we put up the Integrated Highway Management System, IHMS, which we use asset-wise. So right now, as Ponzali, I mean, one of our works package was finished, which was the Telok Melano. Now, right now, we are slowly going into the asset-wise is being used for the maintenance of that work package. Now, this is just to give you the whole system, IPMS system overview, whereby we have the HIM, the PIMS, and again, like I mentioned just now, we have our BIM modelers. Now, total number of licenses used for the whole Pembrone project was 247 licenses, which was used from our HQ all the way to our works package. And our reporting was done through dashboard with the help of utilizing Power BI. So again, all our stakeholders had to do was to click open the web, and then they can see and then monitor the progress of the project. Now, this is just on our clash detection for BIM. During said period, we had identified 2,063 clashes. So all in all, we managed to save about 40 million USD in reworks for the government of Malaysia. So this, in fact, lessened the cost of the project. Now, for our CDE as a efficiency project, the one, as you can see from here, the project management data is using PIMS here, and then we leverage the 2D drawings were also incorporated into our CDEs, and 3D models, as you can see, form part of our CDE. Our BIM team, our BIM team puts up the models inside the one, so that like I said, mentioned just now, then our stakeholders, we just have to go to the web and view the models and work with the whole team. Now, for dashboard reporting, this is just a sample of what we use. Also, this was used to provide insight to Ministry of Works and our other stakeholder, which was the Sarawak government. Now, for our asset management, like I said, we used asset-wise. So within it, we had the asset service level agreement, the maintenance work details, like as mentioned by Debbie just now, our team, through asset-wise, our team can just go on site using a tablet, which we have procured, and then perform any maintenance works on the any asset that might be broke in that requires the maintenance. And then we also included standard items based on our BQ. Now this was a requirement by the government so that it's easier for managing and for cost also. At this point, let me pass on to my colleague Puan Zalida.
Thank you very much, Jude. Okay, as Jude said, digitalization proved that digitalization really made a difference for us. In fact, it did more than that, and it set the benchmark for Malaysia's construction industry in terms of giving project visibility and transparency. Visibility, particularly important for a government project. You know, you're responsible for government public funds. You're spending public money, so the visibility is very important. With the digitalization, we got transparency. We had the common data environment gave us that audit trail, which is also very important. Higher productivity, faster delivery, and cost efficiency. That's all part of project delivery, which any stakeholder, any project owner wants, and we were able to achieve that. But one thing I did want to highlight here is, like I say, digitalization enabled us to build more than a highway. For Sarawak particularly, it was an opportunity to upskill local capacity building. But in this picture is showing with the development of skills, BIM skills particularly amongst the younger generation of Sarawak engineers. Now, what we did for our project is we took 45 for the early phase, 45 fresh engineers from the local university. They already learned BIM in college, but we actually gave them an opportunity to actually hone in their skills, learn more, and they actually built the digital twin of the Pan-Borneo Highway. So this is what we meant by local upskilling. And today, their career scope is not just limited to Sarawak. They are going to KL, they're going to other parts of Malaysia, they're going to Singapore, they're going elsewhere. Their job scope is wider now. So that's exciting for us to know. With digitalization, we're changing the construction ecosystem because now everyone's getting into the culture of using management systems, for integrated project management systems, using BIM, using talking about asset management, the importance of it. Going by, you want to have that dashboard reporting for better decision making. So you're changing the construction ecosystem together. Today, the Malaysian government continues in its push for digitalization, not just in building projects, but in the infrastructure projects like the roads and highways, Pan-Borneo Highway, and many other projects. So that's happening at the federal government as well as in the state government, and also very exciting for us to see. And the private sector is also buying in, continuing its push. This is our company today, Multimore Resources. We are doing two iconic projects for the state. One is building another highway in the northern part of the state. It's 89 kilometers. We call it the Northern Coastal Highway. And we're also doing, we are the project management consultant for the automated rapid transit project for the Kuching urban transportation system. So Jude and his team are getting in early to digitalize the infrastructure there, because for us, we've got the end in mind. It's not just about building the road today. You got to think about the asset throughout its life cycle. So you want to manage that. So you got to it's important to get the foundation right, get the information right in that common data environment, build that digital twin so you have an X-ray vision of your asset. And it's so much easier, and it'll be optimized performance throughout the asset life cycle. So we're getting that in now early. Okay, and ending, I'm almost ending, yep. So like I say, digitalization of infrastructure enabled us to build more than just a highway. Yes, we get a physical highway, so we're connecting people, economy, and growth, but we're also getting a digital twin for efficient design, construction, and optimum management across the asset life cycle. We're building local capacity, and that's exciting, and we're changing the culture, the construction culture, to be more digitalized. But the journey, as you heard from so many speakers earlier, it's not a journey without its challenges. It requires strong will and very good support from the government, policy, from project owners, from project implementers, solution partners. Very important. Make sure you choose a very good solution partner like Bentley and the representatives who can support you. For us, they really, like we had Reveron from in Malaysia, and they held our hand throughout the whole process. There was a series of workshops, and we also had a few other local companies, BIM Asia, UTSB, all of us holding hands, working through the ecosystem of stakeholders. It's building awareness and buy-in for that digitalization. So it's a whole change. Make sure you have that good support. And finally, and that's it. That's our story. Thank you very much for listening. Digitalization does work. There's a lot of benefits to it today and tomorrow. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you very much for the presentation, Ms. Nur Zalida Ahmad and Mr. Jude Dos George. Also, the brief history of Borneo, which is very interesting, since we share the land, the culture, and natural wonders together. Thank you very much once again. And apart from that, we can also learn that the benefit from the digitalization of the Pan-Borneo Highway that were presented are increased the visibility, transparency, high productivity, faster delivery, and cost efficiency with the good support of partners and government. Very nice. Thank you once again. Before we proceed, I'd like to inform that there will be a rerun for all the webinar session through MRTV channel on YouTube. So if you need to see the slide again, please visit MRTV channel on YouTube and don't forget to subscribe. Yay. And for all the participants who already joined the webinar, you're already registered automatically, so you don't have to be worried to miss the certificate. And if you have any questions, for Mr. Trisasongko Widianto, Acting Director General of Construction Development, you can send it to email at fenalosa. I'll break it down for you. fenalosa7@gmail.com. It's FENALOSA7 as in number and @gmail.com. All right, moving on to the next agenda is the discussion session. And we have selected a few questions from dozens of questions, millions of questions, no, kidding, dozens of questions that come into the Q&A inbox. I will read the questions from the participants to each speaker. Start from question number 1. Here we have Nurholit Widya Praja. This question is addressed to Ms. Sylvia and PT MRT Jakarta. I'd like to ask you how MRTJ manage information for both ongoing projects and also completed projects. Are they managed in distinctive platform or single integrative platform? And for what purpose the information being used in post-construction stage? And lastly, so there are 2 questions. And lastly, how BIM and information management helps creating effective project management? Ms. Sylvia.
Yeah. Yes, okay, so okay, thank you. Thank you, Nadia. So those are the 2 questions. So first question is that in the phase 1 of MRT Jakarta project, we didn't use BIM. Yeah, I mean, for the project wide, yeah, we didn't use BIM and we didn't use any CDE. Yeah. So what's happening, and only for phase 2 onwards that we are starting to do that. So what's happening for us now is that we have, we will end up like 2 sets of informations, right? One is from the sets of information and data for the phase 1, and then after that for the set of information of phase 2. So therefore, what we are trying to look into now is actually how we can actually kind of like migrate the data in our phase 1 projects onto the same platform of this phase 2 project, so that then we can have that integrated data and project informations in the same platforms, you know. And then we have because MRT Jakarta Phase 1 and Phase 2 is actually the same line. Yeah, it's still the same north-south line of MRT Jakarta. So therefore, it is in our best interest that we can actually integrate all the data into the same platform. So that is a homework for us that currently we are also looking into, you know. So while we are developing the systems for phase 2, we also have to take care of how to bring up this phase 1 project data information. So that's for the question number 1. And then question number 2, I think, is about how the utilizations of BEAM and as well as the CDE could help bring about an effective project management. And I think throughout today's presentations from myself and from our panels of speakers today have shared the many features, yeah, and its utilizations that can help us to achieve that, you know. But I think if I just have to put it simply in our case, with that would be that, you know, we would want to avoid finding out issues, you know, such as clashes of constructions only when we go to the site, you know, or only or after the constructions itself, you know, and ended up we have to do reworking, you know, and that would be a waste of money, waste of time, you know. And this is the most simple thing that we want to avoid, you know. That's number 1. And then secondly is that for MRT Jakarta, we are the project developments, we are project owners. We are not only constructing, but we are also later on will be the one who's operating it, maintaining it, and then also we have to carry out the business expansions of it, you know. So we are also doing the non-fare box business, you know. So for us, we want to be able to plan ahead, you know, from now, yeah, from at the point of the design and the constructions, so that we can optimize our operations management and also the maintenance costs, right? And as well as how we can also optimize the non-fare box in the stations and along the line, you know. So that's why we can only do that, I think, if we are having a visualizations of what this station and line would be look like, you know, when it's completed, you know. So that is our interest of it. And lastly, of course, the fact that now we are in the situations of the pandemic, we do not know how long this thing will last, you know. But one thing for sure, crisis such as this may happen as and when it happens, right? And we want to be ready, we want to be resilient in the way we work, you know, and not to be, and we don't want to be such situations hinders the developments, right? And I think in this past year experience for us, the last 1 year, it only shows, you know, that, you know, by making that that big decisions of going into digitalization was the right decisions, because it was a decision that enabled us to carry out our project implementations even in the midst of the pandemic. You know, right in the midst of the pandemic last year, we were still able to proceed, carry out the work as it should be, you know, and as a result, our current progress, you know, the contract packages that is now ongoing, the current progress is basically still on track, you know, and it's not affected by the situations of the pandemic.
Oh, thank you very much, Ms. Sylvia. And the next question for Mr. Yap, C-Beam Lead and C-Railway System Lead Ecom Singapore, from Stephanie Arianto. Thank you, Stephanie. The question is, on what level of a project this system will bring merits for MRT scale? I am sure it brings merits, but how if it is for much smaller project? Mr. Yap?
Yep. All right.
Yes.
In the way, if you look into, if you look into the way how BIM is required and mandated by clients, the merit in the way we do not measure whether that is applied to the project by scales. Indeed, that should be measured in the way that whether how the project should be delivered, whether you are going to deliver it correctly, or that is not delivered up to the mark of the owner requirements, right? If your project is as simple as that you are able to be so effectively deliver the project in the 2D form, all right, within a very small run of cost, and there's no strong mandate by your clients to bring this information into asset operation, then of course, you still can live in your 2D worlds, as no one's going to ask and mandate that requirements to your projects, right? But on the other way, if the client is looking into the BIM deliverables as an investment for their operations, for projects like the scales of MRTCs, then that will be important for the contractors to actually beef up in terms of their BIM deliverables to meet the client expectations and outcome, right? As for consultancies, the way I look at it, I think for us, the reason why consultants, all right, is all pushing very hard for digitizations. I think that is important that we want our informations to be highly secure and available to us anywhere, anytime, and any places, which especially I think over the past 1 year, all right, during this pandemic, is very important, and it showcases how important that the digitizations of information is critical, especially for organizations like the scales of AECOM. I mean, we have about 40,000 staff over the world, all right, covering all 7 continents. In case if we're just keeping all our information in boxes and row of drawings, there is absolutely no way that we can reach out to all the required informations when we are all working from home, right? So that will be definitely from consultants' perspective why we are taking that very seriously in terms of digitizing all our information. So as for project, as what the question has asked, hopefully I answered that correctly. I think pretty much you just need to analyze that, whether what is the requirement that's imposed from your clients, and if the 2D workflow currently you are adopting is already, you are able to deliver effectively in order to fulfill with your client's requirements, right? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Yap. So in conclusion, scale doesn't matter. All right, next question for Mr. Paul and Miss Debbie from Fadil. Fadil, thank you very much for your questions. Question is, in the remote area where there is minimum telecommunication access, such as telephone, internet, etc., how can this technology provide maximum support for the infrastructure project? Mr. Paul? Ms. Debbie?
Yes, thank
me?
you. That's a very good question.
Yeah.
And what we're seeing with a lot of construction technology now is that very often you don't need to be connected continually in order to work. So construction sites, even city center construction sites, sometimes have poor connectivity just because of buildings and concrete in the way, people might be underground. So it doesn't always give you the best internet access. And that's, of course, the same with remote areas. So many applications, so I work a lot with Synchro as a construction application for sharing information from the CDE to site teams. That will work in a disconnected way as well. So you can download your documents, go to site, and then synchronize when you have a connection again. And what we're seeing is with the pace of change, a lot more places are getting a lot more connected very quickly. So the pace of connections is really speeding up. Just different technologies enabling people to connect from site. So yes, some areas will be difficult, but increasingly technology doesn't require an always-on connection. And with Bentley, our applications will work offline as well.
Oh.
And I think if I can just also echo what Paul is saying, especially Paul mentioned about the construction phase, the same goes in line with the operations and maintenance phase. What we are seeing a lot of the requirements come in is that the maintainers and the operations, when they get their works orders and they get their instructions to go perform a task, will actually do a lot of that preparation back in on site or back in their facilities before they go out into the remote areas to actually visualize, walk through the facility, walk through the asset, collect all that information so they can take a snapshot of that and then go out into site to actually perform the repair. But again, echoing what Paul is saying, because of some of the features and the move.
Okay, so I think we lost connections with Miss Debbie.
Infrastructure to actually bring, you know, connectivity out into their maintenance teams as well.
All right, thank you for the answer, Mr. Paul and Ms. Debbie. In conclusion, you don't need a way to be connected to the internet to make it work, only sometimes. And most importantly, you can access the Bentley system offline. Wow, that's amazing. Okay, last question to Multimore Resources Malaysia from Taufik, PT KAI or Indonesian Usage PT Indonesian Railways. The question is, BIM, digital construction system, and other digitally backboned solutions would normally have common risk, including access and data security, asset integrity, and safeguards, despite, of course, its undoubtful enormous benefits to deliver more informative process, faster operations, efficient decision support system, transparency, and accountability. Based on your experience thus far, what would be the key success factors to effectively manage this risk?
Okay. Thank you very much for the question. It's a very good question and I would say challenging. But the way we mitigate those issues that you just brought up was, I mean, besides from having our own, what's that, DRC, disaster recovery. So, I mean, the main way we mitigated it was to have multiple sources of those data replicated in three different places. Because, I mean, I don't know whether it's good or it's bad, but during our period as a project delivery partner, there were numerous attempts to actually hack into our system. So on an average per day, I would say about 50 plus. So now, like you said, BIM, like everyone has said, BIM has a lot of advantages if used correctly. So now when you look at the security part, number one, I believe you can use Bentley has its own cloud services which you can use, so it's quite safe. Now, if you were in our situation whereby, because as much as we wanted to use cloud at that time, we were asked not to because there is a regulation, I mean, there's a rule from the government of Malaysia that said those data should remain on-premise. So that's why we had multiple replication sites within the whole Sarawak just to cater for this. So hopefully that answers your question. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you very much for your answer. Next questions. One more question for Miss Sylvia and PT MRT Jakarta from Fadil. Thank you, Fadil. The question is, how can we compromise this technology with the fact that there is a huge increment in unemployment due to COVID-19 and the arrival of foreign workers? And in the term of industry revolution 4.0 versus society era 5.0, wow, Fadil, that is a tough question. Miss Sylvia. The screen is yours.
As you said, it's a tough question, but I think it's a very good question. I think that that is a question that always people would have, right? You know, like automations and technology versus employment, etc. But perhaps I think what I like to say is that the purpose of us in the constructions, we implement these technologies, you know, like BEAM or CDE, with the objective of achieving efficiency and effectivity. It's not at the expense of you know, employment, you know, or resources. Yeah, because the way we are looking at it, the efficiency that we are talking about is to be achieved by upskilling our resources and upscaling our project delivery. You know, I think when Zalida already given a good example of what happened in the Sarawak projects, right? That they got the opportunity to train up, you know, the engineers, you know, and then send them to various countries and other projects and organizations to share about it. And that's also what's happening here at MRT Jakarta. You know, our engineers, construction engineers, all went through the trainings, you know, on how to optimize the utilizations of these beams. And so, as well as our consultants, as well as our contractors, you know, they have engineers that are being trained up, you know. In fact, I would have to say that we are actually looking at and adding our resources that has these specific skills, yeah, you know, because we are now at the point whereby we are embarking these transformations, right? You know, and then we ourselves not necessarily have our current resources, not necessarily have that skill, so we also have to look out for people who are having that skills, you know. And that is when it comes to upskilling, you know. And then after that, upscaling is that, like I mentioned, you know, in MRT Jakarta, we have the ambitions of accelerating our network expansions, you know. So when we have technologies and on our side, you know, and we are capitalizing it, it allows us to carry out MRT lines, you know, concurrently, you know, in a faster manner, you know, in its delivery, you know. And so with that efficiency and effectivity that we're talking about, you know, everything is win-win, you know. We all, you know, we all rise up together, you know, so it doesn't have to be at the expense or as the questions, you know, concerns about employment, you know, but it's in fact, it creates more, you know, and better employment.
Okay, thank you very much for the answer, Ms. Sylvia, and I agreed that the percentage of jobs for which job-specific or technical skills are ranked as essential in this industry revolution 4.0. Yes, next question for Bentley, Mr. Paul and Ms. Debbie. Question is, has there been any city-wide scale implementation of CDE for urban infrastructure or utility management? And this question is from Adi Cahyo. Thank you, Adi, for your question.
Yes, thank you. Another good question. I guess from the project delivery side of things, yes, I mean, CDEs have been used for a while now on large projects, on mega projects. For example, it was used on the Olympics in London as a good example. Now, that wasn't a city, but it was a huge campus area where the CDE was used based on project wines. Another example is with Masdar City in Abu Dhabi. So Masdar City was a brand new city built on the outskirts of Abu Dhabi, and they used project wines as their CDE to create and manage and store all their content with the sort of benefits that we've talked about in these sessions today. So really the principle of a CDE scales really well. Somebody earlier was talking about smaller projects and benefits there. Well, a CDE is equally applicable on a large city scale project as it is on a small project, because essentially what we're doing is We have people creating content, and we need to store and manage that content securely. So picking up on some of the security questions that people have talked about. When we store that data securely in the cloud with protocols and processes for quality assurance, quality control, and we set access permissions about who can see that data, who can access it, who can do certain things with it. That's all done in a very secure way. And from a technology perspective, it scales really well. So the technology doesn't care whether we are 6 people working on a small project or 1,000 people working on a city project. The technology is there now. It's everyday technology to support that process. The bigger issue, I guess, with those larger projects is the cultural side of a CDE. So it's ensuring that everybody follows the principles, that everybody is trained and educated in how the CDE works, and that they understand the benefits to them doing their job of using the CDE and following the processes. So in my experience, the technology is there as a backbone that scales really well. The big challenge is always to ensure that people understand it and are trained and supported in using it. And Debbie, you may well have a perspective from the operational side on that as well.
Yes, I think just on a city scale, I think we have in the Bentley use cases, I think it's the city of Belgium, I think, where they kind of did a digital representation using our context capture capability to digitize the entire city so that they had the concept of a twin. And with that, then they could overlay floods, warnings. They could actually simulate, if there was going to be any incidents, what the time to actually get people to that incident. So there's lots of use cases that we're seeing on a large scale where they are used, a lot of our users out there, whether it's infrastructure, cities, rail, mining, that they're starting to use a lot of the capabilities to digitize their assets and bring it into a central environment so that they can start enhancing the visualization capabilities with information that helps them make the decision. So we are seeing a lot of that in the midst at the moment.
Okay, thank you for your answer, Mr. Paul and Ms. Debbie. Next question for Multimore Resources Malaysia. From your presentation, this question is from Taufik Rahman. Thank you, Taufik. From your presentation, I'm really interested on the local talent development aspect. What was Multimore's key strategy to ensure that there is effective transfer of knowledge and transfer of technology from expert consultants to Multimore internal talents? Was such scheme designed as mandatory program? For example, incorporated in the requirement clauses in the contract with the consultants?
Okay. Thank you very much for that question. Actually, I think in the whole bigger scheme of things, the Pan-Borneo Highway Sarawak project was designed to involve as many locals to share as much of the pie with locals as possible. So, the people aspect was one segment of it. Local contractors, benefited, and the local vendors, the whole supply chain. We wanted to involve as many locals as possible. For the people part, you saw that fine example of how we train the fresh engineers with BIM skills. And, back to Sylvia's point, in actual fact, for our quite a bit of the early design, we had already started construction, and then we had to go back to design that digital twin. So our fresh engineers, we gave them a task, complete 1 kilometer in one day. So they did that. So it was part of, a technology transfer, a formal program of transfer of technology for them. But also the other consultants, it was the whole project took on that philosophy as such, that, we want to train as many of our locals and expose as many of our locals to as much of the whole project delivery process. Because for us, in Sarawak, we build roads, but the roads are shorter lengths, and the contractors have smaller contracts, and suddenly the Pan-Borneo Highway came along, and it's a $4 billion project. It's the single largest infrastructure project ever in Sarawak. And it was an opportunity to train, to bring everyone in that journey, people, contractors, even the people who are renting houses. It was a whole chain. So we managed to do that. Yes, there was some formal program for the transfer of technology for people and contractors. There were others, the not so formal, but still everyone, the whole ecosystem rose up together.
Wow, amazing. All right, we are going to move to the last questions. It's question for Mr. Yap from Randy Tio Pradipta. Thank you, Randy, for your question. The question is, Mr. Yap, could you share base your experience on how effective costs the using BIM in the planning and construction stage comparing to the conventional method?
All right. That's on the cost, right?
Yes, it's about the cost, how effective it is.
Yeah. So if I can share with you in terms of the SSP project as a reference. So I think for SSP, that's the first projects that in Malaysia that we have mandated the BIM level 2 to the contractors. So at that time, I'm still with MRTCs as a project client who am championing the entire BIM implementations. So in a way, at that time when we intend to bite the bullet to go for it, I think one of the key issues is we see a lot of abortive and these abortive works that has become a contractual issue for us back in our line 1, right? So as such that during line 2, we have actually adopted the level 2 BIM workflow, where we want the design integrations to be structured in the PAS 1192 standard, where we mandated a common environment platform to get all our designers to look into one single models throughout the project life cycles. So eventually, I think the outcome for the project is very positive, as it has increased tremendously in terms of the number of site issues that is generated, by the contractors due to the bad designs, modelings, or design coordinations. So at that time, before I left, I think in generally we are looking into the reductions about 30% of site issues, all right, that has been generated. So just imagine if this issue eventually, all these clashes has been bring towards, bring to site. That is going to be a major issues to the contractors as well as the client. And it's going to, as the contractor is going to spend even more effort, all right, in correct all the, okay. Yeah, that's from my end.
Thank you very much for the answer, Mr. Yap. And that was our last questions. Thank you again to all the speakers for answering those questions and for your very great presentation. It was a pleasure to have you all with us. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. We are now at the end of this webinar. Hopefully, the development of BIM can be the answer to your construction work, not only in Indonesia, but also throughout the world amid the COVID-19 pandemic, which forces us to work remotely. And before we say goodbye, I'd like to inform that there will be a rerun for all the webinar sessions through MRTV channel on YouTube. So if you need to see the slide again, please visit MRTV channel on YouTube. And for all the participants who already joined the webinar, you are already registered automatically, so you don't have to wait to miss the certificate. And I would like to say it in Bahasa. Bagi peserta yang sudah join, Anda sudah otomatis terdaftar. Jadi Anda tidak perlu absen ulang untuk mendapatkan sertifikat. Jangan lupa juga untuk isi survei di akhir webinar untuk mendapatkan e-book dari Bentley. Dan siaran ulang webinar ini bisa Anda saksikan lagi karena akan ditayangkan di YouTube channel MRTV. Dan jangan lupa subscribe. Udah kayak All right, lastly, I want to say thank you to all the speakers, participants, and PT MRT Jakarta for holding this webinar. May this webinar be beneficial for all of us to make the transportation system better. Thank you for your attention. See you at our next webinar. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you, Nadia. Thank you, Yip. Thank you, Paul, Debbie, Zelida, and Jude. Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone, for having us.
Yeah.
Bye.
All right. Bye. Stay safe, everyone. Bye.